There's nothing normal about the new normal. With everything going on in the world today, food prices are rising dramatically and many items are becoming harder to find. It's now more important than ever to consider starting a garden to grow at least some of your own produce. But how do you garden when many of the materials, supplies, and tools used in gardening are also going up in price or are just not available? In this first of a 10-part series, Gardening in Trying Times, we'll examine what's happening with our food supply and why. The U.S. food supply is under pressure, from farms to factories to store shelves. The cost that consumers pay for food has been soaring. U.S. inflation jumped 7.5% in the past year, a 40-year high according to the Labor Department's recently released data. And food is having an increasingly difficult time making it to store shelves. But what about the food that hasn't been grown, processed, packaged, or shipped to your grocery store yet? That's where things start to get even more worrisome. The same problems we see at the grocery store, higher prices, shortages, and supply chain issues, are also impacting the ability of farmers to obtain the products they need to produce our food. The world is facing the prospect of a dramatic shortfall in food production as rising energy prices cascade through global agriculture. The CEO of Norwegian fertilizer giant Yara International says, "I want to say this loud and clear right now that we risk a very low crop in the next harvest," said Sven Tor Holsteder, the CEO and president of the Oslo-based company. "I'm afraid we're going to have a food crisis. Global fertilizer prices have tripled, and we're being warned that this is going to have a catastrophic impact on food production all over the world." A recent report analyzes record high fertilizer prices. The Texas A&M Agricultural and Food Policy Center projects an additional 80% increase in 2022. The report tells how farmers and economists are wringing their hands on how to get a handle on record high fertilizer prices heading into the 2022 crop year. Joe Outlaw, PhD, co-director of the Agricultural and Food Policy Center and Texas A&M AgriLife Extension Service economist, told farmers at the Blackland Income Growth Conference in Waco that fertilizer prices could escalate as much as 80% this year as supply and demand gyrate at never-before-seen levels. But much more than just making the food you buy more expensive, sky-high fertilizer costs may mean that some crops won't even be planted. A farming insider warns the coming food shortages are going to be far worse than we're being told. According to this farming insider, dramatically increased costs for fertilizer will make it impossible for many farmers to profitably plant corn this year. He goes on to say, "Things for 2022 are interesting and scary. Input costs for things like fertilizer, liquid nitrogen, and seeds are like triple and quadruple the old prices. It will not be profitable to plant this year. Let me repeat, the economics will not work. Our plan is to drop about 700 acres of corn off and convert to soybeans. They use less fertilizer, and we also have chicken manure from that operation. Guess what? We are not the only ones with those plans. Already there's a shortage of soybean seeds, so we'll see how that will work out. The way I see it, there will be a major grain shortage later in the year, especially with corn. I mean, we're small with that. But what about these people in the Midwest who have like 10,000 acres of corn? This will not be good. Corn is one of the foundational pillars of our food supply. If you go to the grocery store and start reading through the ingredients of various products, you will quickly discover that corn is in just about everything in one form or another. So what is our country going to look like if a severe corn shortage actually happens? What will your grocery cart look like if other crops are affected in the same way? Now, I'm not an economist, a statistician, a financial advisor, or a fortune teller. This is just how I see things from here in my garden. But there is most definitely hope. We've adapted to trying times before. During World War I and World War II, victory gardens were widely planted. These home and community gardens helped overcome food shortages and even boost morale. Whether you've got a large backyard and a rototiller or only a small space, you can grow a garden. Now, quite frankly, it'll take a lot of garden for your family to fully live off of it. But worst case scenario, after day 85 of nothing but rice and beans, wouldn't some fresh green beans, squash, or even just some fresh herbs from your garden be nice? Now, my garden's grown on an old basketball court using raised beds and the square foot gardening method. The square foot gardening method offers several unique attributes that allow people and communities to easily grow much of their own food in a very small space, no matter where they live, the soil conditions, or what their circumstances are. No machinery, fertilizers, or heavy tools are ever needed, and no skills or horticultural experience are necessary. If you've ever thought about planting a garden, there's no better time than now to do so. So remember the words of Sir Winston Churchill: all the great things are simple, and many can be expressed in a single word: freedom, justice, honor, duty, mercy, hope.